And thank you for everyone for being here. We'll be reading some poems from my new full-length collection, Good Son. I always start my readings with the title poem, Good Son. Good son. You'll wind up housing a skeleton of fish in your stomach if you don't slow down, she preaches from beside her teeth cleaned bones. And I'll be the one who must remove them. I watch her spit what can't be eaten, which isn't much. I try to recreate the motion of her cheeks and lips, deconstruct the instinct of finding food as if I've gone hungry before too. A pair of my checkered underwear hanging outside fights the wind. And it's if I need reminding, she tells me to drink the soup she made. Like a good son, I don't hesitate to sip loudly, searching the bottom of the bowl for more gujitsu. She isn't looking, so I sip louder. The pile of bones in front of me, hopelessly small, flesh still clinging to the carcass, unwilling to be gnawed off by my American mouth. I wonder how much I've even swallowed. My mother opens her throat again. Whiplashes of wind surround the house, summoning all things in its direction. Very grateful to my publisher for allowing me to write into the intersections of different themes that I'm still exploring. One of which, as I've been kind of working in the healthcare field for about 5 years now, is the intersection of both being, a healthcare worker, being just a regular person, and also like being the children of immigrants, both of which, are college educated. And so there's always kind of like an interesting relationship and dynamic between me and my parents, me and my patients, especially working in New York City and working with so many immigrants, working with so many non-English speaking people that remind me of my family. So this poem is titled ROMI. It's an acronym for Rule Out Myocardial Infarction, which is kind of like a word, medical term we use for a heart attack. ROMI. It's June 18th, 2020, and my father tells me his chest feels uncomfortable. I ask if he's dyspneic. He says it isn't that. I probably shouldn't use my hospital words, so I ask him how long he can close his eyes before realizing how hollow his lungs are. There's a pause. He sighs. The phone is pressed so tight against my ear, his next breath empties me like a straw. My father tells me he feels uncomfortable every time he walks past Grandpa's belongings still around the house. He says he can't breathe. He says busufu, very busufu. As he continues talking, I realize it might be happening right now, so I start loading questions. Does it happen any other time? How long does it last for? Are you in pain? But wait to open fire because we're taught to let patients reveal their diagnosis by not interrupting. We call it good history taking. When my grandfather died on June 16th, 2020, I found out his birth name was Cheng Yu Liang. However, when he came to the US, they left out the G from its spelling, making him Cheng Yu Liang, our family's history taken upon arrival. Thank you. have some poems about my wife. So I'm gonna read one or two of those. And just a disclaimer, I'm vegan, so some of these poems are kind of, a Gen Zer told me vegan coded is a term. So some of the poems are vegan coded. Birds. Ask me whose fists I father, my love. Ask how the violence of the birds I shot and killed as a boy still haunts me, and how long it's been since I last ate one. Dogs pass me waiting for which of us will bark first, our jowls stirring with impatience. I pray for parts that make me human enough. I accept the thunder and rain, how the sun on wet cement after a storm recovers smells and leaves us with a taste we can almost name. I am grateful for all that happened, because all that happened brought me you. Okay, I feel like lately I've been reading a lot of poems from the book, so I'm gonna read some new work. I feel like open mics contribute a lot to my development as a poet and as a writer, and so I'm very grateful to be able to read it and following an open mic, to be able to share the stage and the mic with other readers and writers also sharing new work. So thank you again for everyone who read tonight, who shared their work tonight, who shared particularly their new work. I think it's only fair if I also share new work and things that may not be 100% ready, but that's kind of what I love about the experience of being at an open mic, is everyone's kind of sharing what might not be ready, but is ready to be shared. And so these may not be finished, but I think they're ready to be shared. If anyone's familiar with the Chinese tradition of Tomb Sweeping Day, it's a day of the year that we go to the tombs or columbriums of our since passed relatives and family members, and clean their tombs or their graves and display out the things that they loved during their lifetime, whether there were certain types of foods or beverages, sometimes alcohol, and we burn things like fake money in order to honor them and let them know that we're thinking of them down here and we want to send things up to you in the sky. And so this poem was written after this year's Tomb Sweeping Day and after visiting the Greenwood Cemetery in Brooklyn, New York. Tomb Sweeping Day, Greenwood Cemetery, Brooklyn, New York. Finally, we walk through the cemetery, past flowering cherry blossom trees, over a pond bridge where koi fish circle the same spots as yesterday. I try not to notice the clouds of smoke, joss paper set ablaze by other families, reminders of what we forgot to bring. Today's forecast is cold and punishing. Enshrined unfolding plastic tables, the favorite foods of their late loved ones. Containers full of crispy Cantonese roast pork belly, whole cooked soy chickens, mounds of fresh oranges, grape clusters, baijiu bottles, box crackers, Oreos. That would be for me, for anyone who's keeping note. I would like Oreos left by my tomb. Outside in the bone-chilling April fog, I help my mother unwrap store-bought flowers to place by Gongong's columbrium. My mother, who couldn't get to New York until today, tells me she didn't want her father to think we forgot him, even if we arrive 2 weeks late for Tomb Sweeping Day. Finally, I turn to ask my own father where he would want to be after he passes. Without waiting, he tells me, doesn't matter, just not in the ground. My father reminds me he doesn't like moisture. My father, whose arthritic joints ache on rainy days, is already worried about suffering in the afterlife because I might not remember how he limped for most of my life. So I spare him by recording our conversation in a journal that day. Another reminder. Finally, I stare at the family surrounding the grounds' fire pit, standing together in silence, donned in knit hats and down jackets, emptying their hands and pockets of fake money into the whipping flames. I can't deny how warm they seem. Overhead, a swallow circles the earth. I hear the city traffic return into focus. Look into the sea of grassy hills stretching the cemetery, every tree remembering their leaves in spring. I watch as the billowing hot, turbid air swallows moisture despite us bringing nothing to feed it. My mouth closes to draw its soft, smoky scent into both nostrils. Finally, I reach into my pockets for warmth I denied myself by believing my hands must endure this cold. Okay, reading very, very new poems now. I wrote this one this morning, but I feel like it still goes on with the same theme. Obviously, working at a hospital, I'm around a lot of very sick people, both young and old, unfortunately. And you'd be surprised, I feel like, with how many people that I'm around who are very close to the end of their life, I'm always amazed at how optimistic they are. Even in their final days, final weeks, final months, they always think that they may have more time than they may actually have more options available to them than they actually have. And I've noticed that this sets this weird precedence where they may be living this bliss, where I'm seeing people like this one after the next, and inheriting this sense of fragility about what life looks like and how close and how quickly things can happen. So this poem is titled Autumn Harvest. Autumn Harvest. What do we know if not the edge of night? What makes a funeral home a home? I pass a funeral home every morning walking to work. I pass a funeral home every morning walking home. What is an elegy but an embassy over our half-light bodies? Seems like our parents always had reasons to worship the dead. There's no wonder why they sometimes forget our birthdays. Soon, it will be the Mid-Autumn Festival. Wind rising into October, we obsess over the moon. Make cakes resembling its craters, surround a yolk with lotus paste, then devour. When we are not worshiping the dead, we are worshiping the skies that saved us or summoned it. How after all these centuries escaping death, how have I made a living telling folks they're dying? How am I being devoured in their worship to see another autumn harvest? This poem is titled Passing. Passing. I pass through town. Streets pass into me. I cut air with the blade of my body. My memory falls into two pieces. One lands on the floor and spills flowers by my feet. A field explodes. A tree falls, cutting electrical lines with its tall body. The state calls a man at midnight to fix it. I arrive with a ladder and cannot give back the light people feel was taken. Snow falls everywhere. Children in school run to the window when they hear a train passing and make a wish. In my dream, I am tall as a staircase. I am passing and offer passage. And this last poem is about what children inherit from their parents, but also what women inherit from men. It's titled Mothers and Daughters. Mothers and daughters, please park your pain elsewhere. The grass already refuses to grow in this spot. The unfed shape, your mother's daughter. Listen to the autumn hour extinguish. Forget how water chases water. Under the bridge, we stand still, listening to the passing cars over us. A sort of silencing. We stand still where not even a shadow follows. Inside an undertow of man-made creations, the violent sound of combustion, your father's father. The grass refuses to grow in this spot. All right, thank you, everybody.